You want to improve as a software engineer? Fantastic, you came to the right place. Today we want to discuss about 12 ideas how you can improve your performance as a software engineer. Of course, this will be a very opinionated list with my ideas and also the ideas of this Twitter feed, and now we want to discuss them. Of course, if you have other ideas, please leave them down in the comments below so that we can discuss them a little bit. Alright, and now let's get into it. Alright, and before we start today's episode, I want to say once more thank you for all the support. We had a fantastic start in the year 2021 and this is amazing for me. Even Social Blade gave us a B- now finally as a ranking compared to the whole database. Thanks to you, this is all possible and I can live my dream as teaching Flutter and Dart development or even software engineering topics like this today. I'm really happy to have this opportunity to help all of you. I have one request that I would like to make, and down there you will see now a new membership button where you can join. I created 2 memberships at the moment. They are both just to support us. You get a little icon at the side of your name that you can use. That will be there in every chat that you do, so everyone knows that you are a member. At the moment I didn't plan anything to separate people who pay against people who don't pay, because I believe in free learning. So that means every live stream and every video will be still for everyone available. The only thing is that I maybe think about is that everything that is business related, where I talk about money and maybe also how the YouTube channel develops and so on, will be part of a membership program. That this will be a right for memberships. If you have ideas and you think like a credit after a video or something like that would be beneficial, please let me know down in the comments below what you think about that. And now, thank you so much. If you consider to support this channel and our work, it would be amazing to have you with us. Thank you so much for everything. Really, I cannot say how much I appreciate all of that. And now let's begin finally with the video. One thing that a lot of beginners made as a mistake is learning to read Stack Overflow correctly. Most of the developers starting by typing in their questions, going into Stack Overflow, and usually they go through the whole question. So they start to read every single bit of it. But think about it. Google already led you to this page. So it is very, very sure that this thing could enhance something or contains as an answer something that you necessarily need. So usually what senior developers and also developers who work longer in this industry doing is to ignore the whole question part, scroll down to the first and topmost answer, because in 80% of the times it already includes what you need and search. And if it doesn't, it is very obvious from the answer that it is not fitting to your needs. So I would recommend you to learn how to read Stack Overflow correctly, and this is by scanning it. Going through your question, you already asked it. Now you jump to the first answer and try to use that in a way that you can use it. A good example for that is, for example, on Dart. If we search for how to print a statement or how to print something in the console and always add the programming language to it, then you can see that the first part is really the question that we already entered in Google. And if we check the answer, you will see that the print command is correct for that. Hey everyone! This is the time where you hit the like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, and now enjoy the rest of the session. As a software engineer, we face errors a lot. And errors and mistakes are a fantastic teacher. Try to memorize errors that you made and also problems that you created and solved it in the future just as good as possible, because all these mistakes that you are doing, and believe me, we all do them, we do a lot of them, but to identify these problems and then on the end of the day, if we manage to solve these problems, tap on your shoulder and say, you made that very good. But also try to memorize what leads to these problems. For example, stack traces and error messages, we already talked about in another video about that, helps you to identify what is the problem, what is the cause of the problem, and try to memorize some keywords. For example, all the errors contains usually in an object in Dart, right? So you get, for example, an unimplemented error. Of course, if you hear that the first time, you maybe read them together, it's very hard to understand, but if you dive a bit deeper into the code and take the time to identify these problems, then you will learn more about them and when they will occur. With that, you are enabled to improve in general as a software engineer. The more error messages you already know, the more it is easier to transfer them as knowledge to other programming languages and also just to understand what the error is and how to fix it. A good example for that is of course an assert error or assertion error, which exists nearly in every typed programming language like Java, Objective, C, C#, and so on and so on. So this really helps you in general. The third idea is to ask as many questions as possible. Different to other industries, the programming and developers in general are very helpful in all the different aspects of learning. That means if you ask a question, there are literally no stupid questions. With that, you have the possibility to increase your knowledge by just asking questions. And repetition is also your friend, you know? You have to repeat and repeat all the stuff until you really memorize it. And if you ask questions like, why is this working? And also, how is something implemented and why? All these questions are important, and for me as a software engineer who is maybe a longer time in the industry needs to think also again about this stuff. With that, the general solution that we create all together will be better. That means if for myself, I have to answer your questions, which always hardens my opinion against it. So I learn more about it if I think against this question and maybe also try to identify problems with the solution. So even if you are a junior, never underestimate the importance of asking questions in a team. And also there are some studies about Google who learned that if you have the personal freedom to ask every question, so the overall effectiveness of the team increases. This brings us to the fourth element. There is no shortcut. I'm sorry, if you search something like learn Flutter in 5 minutes or getting started as a programmer in 1 month or learn everything inside of 6 months, whatever you ask for, if you think about it, you will get a study. Programming is usually a CS degree with 3 years of learning where you sit on your ground and have to learn every single aspect of it. Of course, you will learn a lot of bloatware, things that you will never use again. But in general, programming is pretty difficult and you really have to learn all the different naming conventions. You will have to learn about what is a variable, you need functions, you need if, else, where, and so on and so forth. And now some people will say, yeah, but you don't really have to understand them to really program. But this is actually a problem because you will get into these problems sooner or later. That means there are no shortcuts. You will need time to understand and learn things. For example, when I started with Flutter was a year ago and I didn't have any clue about Dart. I was just knowledgeable about C# a little bit and Java. And this knowledge, of course, helped me to improve in Flutter and start with it. But some key aspects were really different. I needed to learn them. It took me nearly 1 year to understand that fully, and even now I'm still feeling sometimes not really confident about it. So that means you will have to learn always as a software engineer, and there are unfortunately no shortcuts. If you see a video like learn Flutter in 1 day, you don't do that. Sorry, but you can try, but it's impossible. One thing that is very important is learning 10-finger writing system on the keyboard. I know some people are very fast with 2 fingers searching, but I promise you, if you write with 10 fingers, it's very much efficient. Additionally, you are way faster with shortcuts, keyboard connections, and so on and so forth. In my company where I worked some years ago, we made a Friday mouseless day. That means every Friday we disconnected our mouse from the computer and tried to only work with the keyboard. Of course, this was very hard, but what that led to is that it was necessary to just work with the keyboard, learn all the different shortcuts, and improve in general on the faster keyboard, because nearly everything that you do is faster on the keyboard than it is if you write something. And the 10-finger writing system, if you can write blindly, increases your possibility of being efficient. That means, of course, not only that you write code makes you efficient, but it could improve your efficiency possibility. So that means if you can write faster, you can write more code, and with that you could be more efficient. So you get, I hope, the idea. So learning this is a very good trait that you can need every day in your programming life. Know your tools. It sounds very obvious, right? Because, well, you have an IDE today, you work a little bit in it, and usually you know exactly what you are doing. If you are going into a team, you start to learn new technologies. Maybe they use packages that you have never heard about. You use different tools. Maybe the Git integration is differently. Maybe you don't work with GitHub, but you work with Bitbucket or with GitLab. All these things. You should understand the differences of these tools. If you work with them and your team is working with them, understand what are the benefits, disadvantages of them. Learn how you can get the optimum out of it. And even if you cannot change the tool that you use, but you learn all the different aspects of that. One example that I can give is, for example, Android Studio with the Git integration. I only work with that because it's more than enough for me, but some teams work with SourceTree. So I had to learn for myself SourceTree, which is also a Git plugin, to just work with that because there was no alternative. And with that, you are more independent, you are more efficient, and this will help you in the long run. So learn your tools, learn and understand what best practices there are, like for example shortcuts. You can work with the keyboard way faster and so on and so forth, which improves your general efficiency and makes you a better programmer. Something that I learned very early in my programming career, because I worked very early in a consultant company, is working with the community. That sounds a bit weird because we as developers usually see ourselves as the people who are in the basement and we write some code and then we are done. But actually this is not really true. We as developers are one of the very few proficients who learn by the community, who writes articles, learning from videos and so on and so forth. And to stay in a community and stay in touch with it gives you a huge boost regarding to efficiency, also to visibility, because visibility is very important if you search in the job on the job market for a job and someone directly sees your, I don't know, blog posts and knows already, hey, this guy really knows what he's talking about, or he created already projects in a similar way. This is the stuff that brings you further as a software engineer in a proficient world. So communities are not just a perfect place to learn new stuff, but also to improve your visibility and in overall increase your value as a developer. So I highly recommend you check out the communities, as for example the Flutter community that you even find with the flutter.dev on the website. You find a /community tab where all the different communities can be found and where you can join into. The next part is find a mentor. If you are starting with Flutter or in general with programming, you usually get very fast overwhelmed because there is a lot of stuff to learn. And to get someone who is knowledgeable and also understands the problem of someone who comes new into this field is very important, because he can answer your questions, he can help you with code reviews, he can understand at which position you are at the moment and can give you advice how you go forward from here. This could be any colleague at your team, and even if he knows that he is a mentor, you can try to identify the way of how he's thinking, ask him the right questions, and maybe ask him, for example, what I always do, for improvement in shortcuts. So whenever you sit there and program, he should give you hints how you can do something faster. Of course, this can be annoying at the beginning, but as you improve and getting better, you will feel that you will be very thankful for such things. So search someone who is a bit better than you or is very much better than you and learn from his behavior and his skills. Another thing that I do for myself a lot is teaching others. In the job, whenever you will be in a team, you will do some things like mini educations. That means you will sit beside of your co-workers and you will have to explain a feature to him very quickly, a part of your code very quickly. And this is like common use case. You will do that all over the place, always, ever and ever and ever again. So that means if you learn how to teach, and also if you learn something new and you explain that to someone else, you not only get like this rewarding feeling that you teach something, but also you do understand it way better because you have to re-understand the whole topic and you will talk about this topic with this person. And with that, you harden the knowledge for yourself and also you help someone else. So you get a reward on both sides. So I highly recommend you, whenever you are able to and you learned a new thing, to also share this knowledge with someone else. Especially what I hear a lot is, I shouldn't write a blog or I shouldn't make a video because I am not good enough already. But think about it. You learned something that you didn't know a day before. So why shouldn't you share it with the world? Because the worst thing that could happen is that someone writes, yeah, it was not useful. But in the best case, someone learned something that he didn't know before. So you improved, they improved. I highly recommend that whenever you can, try to teach new things to people. Next part is a little bit difficult because I am not sure how possible and feasible it is for all of you. But for me, what I learned is that working for different companies and multiple countries even gave me a whole picture of the whole part. I worked in Germany, Switzerland, in New Zealand now, and all these companies in all the countries work completely different. But what I learned is, for example, I got some companies that were very structured, and I learned, for example, my best time as a developer was in New Zealand, where I had the feeling that the team was really dedicated to the product at the end. And everything that was focused on the one thing. Of course, not everything was optimized or perfectly in the world of everything, but I learned that they worked in a very good manner. And I could now take this knowledge with me and bring it into the new companies where I always try to improve the workforce. And this is cool because I can learn something and I have a whole picture and I see other companies, how they do it, see their structures and take the best parts and try to implement them now in the future to others. So that means don't try to focus in one team and one company. I know it's hard, but it really helped me to get a general idea how these structures can work, which one is working better and which ones don't work that well. So this is my recommendation. If you can do it somehow, try to work as for many companies instead of just one. So now, nearly at the end, the 11th idea is don't focus only on programming. That sounds a little bit weird and a bit off because if you think about it, programming is our life, right? Software engineers are there to create code and nothing else. But software engineering is today so much more. If you think about general team structures, today are mostly Scrum and Agile. That means you have a PO, you have a Scrum Master and usually engineers. But what does that mean actually? Which set of skills do you need to provide these teams already? You need for a project, for a PO, which is the product owner, you need product skills, you need to know the product. And also if you are a Scrum Master, you should be able to facilitate your team. Of course, you could say someone else is doing that, I'm just an engineer, but to understand which parts of these teams everyone has is vital for your survival because you can improve not only your efficiency as yourself, but also for the whole team if you understand that programming is not the only thing that you need to do. Also, what's important is things like architecture of software. This is not necessarily a programming topic because usually there is one architect who gives you ideas on how to build everything. Of course, there are testers who test your application, But hey, what is wrong with learning how to write your own unit tests, or even to understand how the testers are working to support them in their daily lives? With that, your team gets more efficient and in general you get better. Last but not least, understand the business behind your tools. If you create a website that is fully flexible, responsive, and so on and so forth, but your users actually sit only on a desktop, that doesn't help you, right? But to understand these problems, you as a developer can make a difference, because you can talk with your PO, give them your opinions, and if you are knowledgeable and you know how the tools are working, people will trust you way more and you can bring your ideas into the tools. So, the last point for today. In a healthy body lives a healthy mind. It sounds like a cliche, and I think it is, but in general, if we don't feel well, we are not productive. That means try to keep balance in your life. Try to understand what your body needs, and if he cannot work anymore, maybe take a break, go for a walk, understand your problems first, and try to balance your work life, right? Especially as programmers, it's very hard because our development at work is sometimes also our hobbies. And some people like me, for example, have a lot of side projects, work after hours just to get their side projects done. And this tends to lead of a lot of overtime, and we don't think that we are really stressed or we are working, but actually we do. So try to get your head a rest, make some meditations, go for a walk, and try to be as healthy as possible. If you like sports, do sports. I don't like sports, so I try to still avoid it. But yeah, this is in general a tip that I can give you. Alright everyone, so that's it, my 12 ideas to improve as a software engineer. Please let me know down in the comments below what you think about all of these. Thank you so much for joining as always, and I really wish you the best and pleasant week. See you the next time, your Max. Bye.